Hey folks, I'm Rainiac and this is week number 5 of the SoccerFieldSensei.net Let's Play Apple Tarot competition! Or at least, it would have been if I got this video out 3 or 4 months ago when I was supposed to. Yeah, you might remember I actually had to skip week 5 of the competition way back then, owing to personal circumstances, but I did say I'd go back and play the game I was intending to, which brings us to this. This is Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior, released by Capcom in arcades in February 1991, rather unusually for games of that time period released worldwide in February 1991, rather than a huge 4 or 5 month wait for games to come out in America after it released in Japan. We're going to play as Chun-Li, partly because she's a really fun character to use, and partly because she's Freezing Inferno's favourite. A basic overview then of the gameplay of Street Fighter 2. And you might be thinking, why am I playing Street Fighter 2? Well, it's because the theme for week 5 was important, and in my view there's been no important fighting game more so than Street Fighter 2, so that's the reason why. And we just destroyed Ryu in about 18 seconds flat. So the gameplay then. It's a 6-button layout plus the joystick. You have 3 punch buttons and 3 kick buttons. You have short punch, medium punch and fierce punch, and the same for the 3 kicks. And then you perform special moves which every fighter has with a combination of joystick and button combinations. And the reason why you have 3 punches and kicks is because which button you use depends on what the special move will do, what properties it will have. Chun-Li's special moves are the lightning kicks that you just saw there, which you just repeatedly mash the kick button and they come out. She also has an aerial throw which I didn't get to show off unfortunately for this entire video, but you get in close to your opponent while you're both in the air and press a punch button. And she's also got the spinning bird kick that you'll see later on. We've just defeated Ryu, who is pretty much the poster child of the entire Street Fighter franchise. A Japanese brawler who lives for the fight and nothing else. He's kind of generic, but he is one of the most iconic fighting game characters of all time. Perhaps only Scorpion and Sub-Zero are more iconic in my estimation. Our second opponent isn't quite as iconic as Ryu then, but he is Blanca. He is the most unique member of the main cast of 8 because he is a mutant, and he has rather interesting backstory. Rather an interesting backstory, I should say. He was involved in a plane crash. He survived the plane crash but landed in the jungles of Brazil, where he mutated into this green beast-like form you see here. He's quite a difficult opponent to play against as a CPU in Street Fighter 2 because he doesn't have the usual exploits, or at least if he does, I haven't found them yet, that a lot of the CPU opponents have. Also, he roars like a beast whenever he wins, because, you know, that's what green mutants from Brazil do, apparently. Rather interestingly, he's become a kind of unofficial mascot of the Brazilian Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro due to his appearance in several internet memes. It's kind of a strange story. And there we just executed a combo on old Blanca there. Now, interestingly, combos were not supposed to originally be in this game. They're actually invented by the developers of this game completely by accident. A combo is just when you link multiple attacks together to cause more and more damage, and also sort of locks the opponent in a stun animation momentarily and they can't move. That's a combo. And Street Fighter 2 invented the combo completely by accident, but they thought it was so good they kept it in. And I'm so glad they did, because combos have become a staple part of any fighting game ever since. Blanca can electrocute himself by pushing down and then pressing the punch buttons repeatedly, but he can still be hit while he's doing that, which is kind of a stupid thing to do. Chun-Li has a very unique ability. She can jump off the walls and then attack. Very useful. It can lead you to be wide open, but it is very, very useful indeed. We're kind of blowing through this already then, because our third opponent is Zangief, the wrestler from Russia. Named after real-life wrestler Victor Zangief, sometimes pronounced Zangief. He's a very interesting character. Considered by many to be the first grapple-based character in any fighting game. Street Fighter 2 is not the world's first fighting game, of course. There were others like Kung Fu and the original Street Fighter back in 1987, of which Ryu is actually the main protagonist and playable character. But Zangief is certainly the first grapple-based character of fighting games, or one of them, anyway. Speaking of first, he's also the first openly gay character in any video game. Seriously. He's entered the Street Fighter tournament to prove he is the strongest man in the world and the superiority of Mother Russia. And in Mother Russia, he actually wrestles bears on a regular basis. Zangief is an absolute badass, seriously. He's also deadly in close because he has a range of very powerful and deadly throws, like that power bomb, which take up a lot of damage. And he has the most damaging move in the entire game, despite not being a boss character, which is the Spinning Pile Driver, or SPD. You get hit with that, it's probably lights out unless your life bar is like at the very top of its peak. And even if it isn't, you're going to go straight into KO state. Unfortunately for Zangief, he's quite susceptible to those kicks when you jump off the wall. Chun-Li's got an absolutely huge array of kicks, which you can do by pressing up or down in the air and the kick buttons. And now we have a bonus stage where you have to beat up a car for whatever reason. Chun-Li and also E Honda make this stage extremely trivial because with Chun-Li you just use the lightning kick attack. After you damage the car a bit on the left hand side, jump over it, and you break the car apart in about 20 seconds flat. Or 25 seconds flat to be precise. Exactly 25 seconds flat to be precise. This stage also appears in the game Final Fight, where Zangief's major rival Mike Hagar is a playable character, although they've never actually appeared in the game together, which is a huge oversight, I think, on Capcom's part. Didn't even appear in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 together. Hagar was in it, but Zangief wasn't. But in Final Fight, if you smash that car open, a guy will appear and go, "Oh my god!" But unfortunately, he's not in Street Fighter, so this version is inferior, in my opinion. Our fourth opponent then is Guile, the ex-Marine and Special Forces member, who has a very personal reason for entering the tournament. He's out for revenge against his best friend getting killed, his best friend being Charlie Nash, who actually would appear in the Street Fighter franchise in the prequels, Street Fighter Alphas 1, 2 and 3. Charlie, or Nash in Japan, is also in Street Fighter V, where funnily enough, his name is now Nash in any country. Any version of the game in whatever country you happen to live in. Not sure why he was Charlie in one territory and Nash in another, but anyway. Guile is a resident anti-air character because his flash kick is absolutely deadly if you jump into him. And Guile excels at keeping a long distance away from his opponent, where he can throw sonic booms, get the jump in, then hit them with the flash kick. He also has an aerial throw, like Chun-Li has, so you've got to be really, really careful if you jump into him. However, somewhat ironically, if Guile jumps into you, as you're hopefully about to see in a moment, if he stops throwing sonic booms, no, he threw a flash kick. Oh, that's right, it's been a couple of days since I recorded this footage, I forgot what happened. Tried to go for a combo, but he just swept the leg Johnny and took me down. But yeah, Guile's got a very personal reason for entering the tournament, as has Chun-Li. She's trying to avenge the death of her father. So we've got a very dramatic backstory clash showdown going on here. And the music, of course, is iconic. Guile's theme has been used in multiple internet meme videos, including one or two that I myself made, and have proved to be extremely popular. They're actually two of my most watched videos of all time, which is kind of sad, really. And that's the end of Guile. An iconic character he may be, but he didn't stand much of a chance against Chun-Li. Although he did take a round off me, so that's not bad, really. Guile is what's known as a charge character, because you have to charge all of his attacks bar the air throw with the control stick, and then to charge back 2 seconds, then forward quickly and a punch button. You get his sonic boom projectile, and then down 2 seconds and a kick button, and up simultaneously you get a flash kick. Charge moves are kind of finicky. More about them when we come to another character that uses charge moves, because now we're fighting Dhalsim, the yoga master from India, who has these rampaging elephants in the background of his stage, and they get kind of annoying after a while. Dhalsim's another very unique fighter. He's got extremely stretchy limbs, and because of this, he can actually reach you from all the way across the other end of the stage. But with this comes its own risks, because if you manage to punch or kick the limb, or hit it with a projectile, he'll still take damage. So yes, he has a lot of range, but it also leaves him more wide open. His hitbox, to use fighting game terms, extends greatly when he uses them, so it's much easier to be hit out of it. You'll still take damage, much like with the Blanca electricity move, but just bear in mind when you're trying to use stretchy limbs, because I used to overexploit them back in the day. I didn't realise I was getting my ass kicked for using them. His slide is also very, very good, but leaves him rather vulnerable once he's used it, so if you block him at the right time and you can counter, he's stunned, and that's the end of him, by the way. But yeah, another really good character. Honestly, this has one of the best ensemble casts of any fighting game. I think that's why it's so important, and to this day is played, and even played in tournaments. I mean, okay, the latest Street Fighter game, Street Fighter V, is the main tournament game, but Street Fighter 2 is still played in tournaments and has absolute masters of the game that have become legends in their own right. Names like Daigo Umehara. Speaking of Japan, our sixth opponent comes from Japan. It's E Honda, the sumo wrestler, who's in the tournament to prove the superiority of sumo as his fighting style and to gain recognition for it across the world and not just in Japan, where it's absolutely a godlike. It's treated almost like godlike, basically. He's not one of those big characters where if he gets you in for a throw within throw range, you're in great trouble because he'll just knee you in the face until you go down. If you get into one of Honda's grapples, you can probably consider the round over, I'm just saying. Now Chun-Li can exploit him with her leaping off the wall kicks here, but unlike with Zangief, Honda's got more range than him, and his most deadly maneuver is the 100-hand slap, which you just repeatedly mash the punch buttons to get. He's also surprisingly good in the air. And he just bear hugged me to death. So that wasn't a bad run really for one credit. There are people that can one credit this game effortlessly. I am not one of them. This, as you can probably tell, was an edited run, and quite heavily edited at that, not that I'm giving much away. But the beauty of an edited run is, you can skip right to this. I decided to switch to Guile, because if you can't beat them, join them. Now interestingly, anytime you beat an opponent in the single player mode, their portrait becomes greyed out on the character select screen, and you can't fight them again. This will be fixed in later versions of the game, because Street Fighter 2 was just the first vanilla version of it. Then came Champion Edition, which allowed you to select 4 other playable characters, as well as have Player 1 and Player 2 play as the same character for the first time ever. Then came Hyper Fighting, which added new moves for every character. Then there was Super Street Fighter 2, which is effectively a whole new game because it adds 4 more characters and different gameplay mechanics. And finally, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which added super meters and super moves, and also a secret final boss named Akuma. More on him a bit later on. E Honda, by the way, pretty susceptible to projectiles, but he's rather good at jumping over them, it has to be said. So the Sonic Boom came in very, very handy there. His other main special move is his, I suppose you'd call it a human torpedo move. I can't remember all the names of all the special moves in Street Fighter, guys, I'm sorry. I play a lot of fighting games, but I don't know all the special move names in Street Fighter. Call me a fraud if you must, but that's just the way it is. And the 100-hand slap still proved to be absolutely deadly. Especially if you block, by the way, because there's such a thing in fighting games as chip damage. And if you block a special move in this game, you still take damage. And the 100-hand slap, because it comes out so fast and does multiple strikes per hit, as you're about to see here, completely destroys your life bar even if you're blocking. And can sometimes even knock you out of it, if you decide to stand up like an idiot. I think his human torpedo might be called the Duskboy, because that's the noise he makes whenever he uses it. The sound quality in this game is superb, really, and a lot of these sound effects have become well known in their own right, and dare I say the word iconic again? I've used the word iconic more times than Matt Hardy, god damn it. But they are! They are very, very well known, and a lot of people on YouTube use them, and a lot of people even in the video game world use them, because they're so well known. And when the game got changed over to Super Street Fighter 2, they added unique death sounds for each of the characters. Unique death cries for each of the characters. They don't just all have the same generic voice, either a man or Chun-Li's scream, because she's the only woman in the game. They would add another woman in the game in Super Street Fighter 2 in the form of Cammy, another extremely popular fighter, but she's not in this version, so we won't speak of her again. On to another bonus stage then, you've got to smash these barrels with your attacks as they come down from the ceiling. Easier said than done for 2 reasons. 1, the barrels don't always smash, even if you hit them with a direct fierce punch or fierce kick. And 2, you can use special moves, but the game gets confused about what direction you're facing, so they don't always come out. I was trying to throw flash kicks to look fancy, and they just didn't want to come out. This stage was removed entirely from the Super Nintendo version of the game when it was ported over to home consoles. And now for our 7th opponent, Ken, for an all-USA showdown. Ken is the Luigi to Ryu's Mario. He was introduced in 1987 along with Ryu in the original Street Fighter game. Also, Guile can suplex people because why not? That's one of his throws, and probably one of the best looking throws in the entire game apart from Zangief's. And there's the flash kick finally shown for you. Ken is a very exploitable AI. He also has the exact same moves to his ex-sparring partner, friend and rival Ryu, as he did back in the original Street Fighter, where he was controllable only by player 2, whereas Ryu was player 1's character. Now, both Player 1 and Player 2 can use him in Street Fighter 2, but his moves are identical. They would actually make an effort to try and branch him out further from Ryu in later iterations of the franchise, but this is not later iterations of the franchise, so he and Ryu are absolutely identical. And he loves to spam the Shoryuken, which is actually very good news indeed, because it's very, very exploitable if he misses it, or even if he strikes you with it, because there's so much of a huge window if he hits you with it. He didn't throw any fireballs in this fight, but occasionally both Ken and Ryu can throw a red Hadouken. I'm not sure what triggers this, I think it's like a 1 in 30 chance. And I can't remember in this version of the game whether or not it has any special properties. I know in later versions it sets you on fire, as well as do damage, but I'm not sure if it sets you on fire in this game or not. Now we've beaten the first 7 opponents, 3 more show up. These guys are known as the Grandmasters, and they are the boss characters of the original Street Fighter 2. They will be made playable later on in Champion Edition onward. And first up is Balrog, a tough and brutal, hard-hitting boxer from the USA, and a very unique character in his own right. He's a bit of a charged character like Guile is, so funny enough we've got the 2 charged characters of the game facing up against each other here. Well, Chun-Li is also a charged character because that's the spinning Burk is charged with down, 2 seconds, up and kick. But Balrog is also unique because of those boxing gloves he's wearing. He has no kicks. Even when he was a playable character, if you press the kick button, you'd still throw punches. It's just that the punch buttons throw high punches, the kick buttons throw low punches. Now Balrog hits hard and fast, but is weak at long range, so projectiles do a very good job against him. And if he starts charging up his punches, for the love of God, interrupt him, because otherwise he's going to destroy your face with a super powerful dashing punch that covers 3/4 of the goddamn screen and does nearly as much damage as a spinning pile driver from Zangief. Seriously, it's that hard hitting. Now, Balrog wasn't originally in Street Fighter V, but he was added to the game later as DLC. He was redesigned somewhat, not in terms of gameplay. He's the same Balrog as we all know and love, but he had a new, in my opinion, much cooler look with a robe and just looks in general much better. Guile's redesigned in Street Fighter V, not so much. They gave him a shirt and tie for whatever reason. But I suppose you've got to reinvent characters sometimes, both in looks and design. And Balrog's name in the Japanese version was actually Mike Bison. Well, M. Bison, but it stood for Mike Bison. But when the game came over to America, they thought that was too similar to Mike Tyson, and understandably they thought they might get sued. So they changed him to Balrog, and the character formerly known as Balrog became Vega. And here is Vega, a flamboyant, narcissistic bullfighter slash ninja hailing from Spain. Easily one of my favourite design concepts of the entire game, and actually my character of choice when I'm playing any other version of Street Fighter that isn't this one. Seriously, Vega is my go-to guy when it comes to fighting people in Street Fighter games. I consider myself to be quite good at him, although there are videos on the internet that would prove that actually I'm not that good against using him, or at using him. And this is Vega's secret weapon. He will climb onto the cage in the background and then dive off with either a claw dive, or even worse, he will suplex you into the ground head first, and it does an awful lot of damage. Fortunately, we are playing as what I like to call the anti-Vega secret weapon in the form of Guile. And that's why. His flash kick is superior against just about anything in the air and anyone in the air, and Vega loves to bounce off the wall like Chun-Li and kick you. And that's perfect because you can get him into a very exploitable loop and just repeatedly flash kick him over and over to get the victory. Some might consider that cheap as hell. I don't actually consider them to be a thing as cheap in fighting games. Well, okay, if you're playing as a boss character that you can't usually play as, that's pretty cheap. I suppose if you throw projectiles over and over again with no let-up, that's kind of cheap as well. But every move in a fighting game, with a very few exceptions, has some kind of counter to it. You just have to know what it is. In short, get better, Scrub Lords. No, seriously, I'm not a professional fighting game player at all. I'm just a filthy casual. There's the suplex to spike Guile's hair into the ground, and Vega gives a victory yodel, quite nothing more emasculating than a man yodeling you after he's beaten you in a street fight. So what are we ever going to do? Well, we're going to switch back to our old friend Chun-Li here, because not quite as effective as Guile, but she also has a pretty good tactic to take down Vega. And it centers around his love of bouncing off the walls. Basically, whenever Vega jumps, you jump after him, off the wall, and you do a kick. And you keep doing this, and you should be able to beat him to the punch. I've actually managed to perfect Vega using this method twice in one match. Or like 2 rounds in one match. Which is no mean feat. I would have got a perfect there if he hadn't hit with that goddamn claw dive. Because I consider Vega to be the toughest fighter in the entire game when he's a CPU opponent. Even more so than the final boss of the game. Also, to steal fighting game terminology, the reads! The reads! Oh my god, the reads. Yeah, I was very happy with being able to track him and just smash him with that kick. It was very, very satisfying. Now, the music at this stage is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best tracks in the entire game, in my humble opinion. Maybe not the best. Funny enough, I think Balrog, like the American Balrog, the Las Vegas stage, that's got the best music in the entire game. But honestly, the entire game soundtrack is superb. Track it down if you haven't got it. It's just, from start to finish, it's an absolute delight. And they changed it up a bit for Super Street Fighter 2 and onwards, and it's still good, but I actually prefer the original Street Fighter 2 versions of the soundtracks, but I suppose that's just me. You also notice goddamn Vega's got a claw on his hand, so he's bringing a weapon to a street fight. That's kind of cheating. Well, I suppose Street Fighter is no holds barred. And there's his other pose, by the way, where he shows off his face to the world. Vega's backstory is he considers himself the most beautiful person in the world, the most beautiful fighter in the world, which begs the question, why did he wear a mask? Well, he wears a mask because he's an absolute narcissist, and therefore he doesn't consider the world worthy of seeing his face, except on very, very rare occasions. They actually retcon this in Street Fighter V, where his mask has gone completely. He's now wearing a frilly shirt, but his face is exposed to the world. And he is kind of glamorous, so I wouldn't say he's the most beautiful person in the world, mainly because he's a video game character. And that's kind of creepy if I start talking about video game characters being the most beautiful people in the world. Now, one thing you can do is Vega blocks too much, you're about to see something happen. And there it is. He actually loses the claw on his hand. And if you do this to him, it will actually limit his range. And there's another brilliant read, which was totally not a result of mashing the buttons, I don't know what you're talking about, go away, to finally get rid of Vega, and not before time. Stepping up to replace him then as Grandmaster 3 is a load of flaming barrels. Psych. No, this is actually our third and final bonus stage, and honestly, I think it's the most uninspired of the entire lot. You just gotta break up these barrels, don't hit them with your fists or feet when they're flaming, or they'll light you on fire, and you'll waste time. Again, Honda or Chun-Li absolutely destroys it with their multiple hit attacks. This was removed from the Super Nintendo version and replaced by a brick wall. You have to smash brick by brick. Honestly, I could have done with this not being in the game at all, but it is in there. And now we fight the third boss of the game, Sagat. Not Sagat's first time he was a boss in the Street Fighter series, however, because this guy was actually the boss of the first Street Fighter game way back in 1987. Only one of 3 characters to return from that game, the other two of course being Ken and Ryu. Although they would later bring back some Street Fighter 1 characters in the Alpha series. Most notably Jen, a Chinese martial artist and assassin. Now, Sagat is a very, very dangerous opponent indeed. He's got fireballs for days, which can hit you both high and low, and the Tiger Uppercut does crazy, crazy amounts of damage. He can also hit you very hard in the face like that, stun you, and then you're in deep, deep trouble. If you get this guy to within, I don't know, 3/4 to a length of the screen, good luck trying to avoid all the fireballs. I couldn't do it. He finished me up with the Tiger Knee. And great placement of the palm tree there, Capcom. You completely obscured this side of Sagat's face there. Which is probably why they removed that in the Super Nintendo version of the game. Or maybe they moved it to the background. No, I think they just flat out removed it. Maybe they couldn't render it in the foreground for whatever reason. The Super Nintendo was limited because it was a home console as opposed to an arcade cabinet. So how do you beat Sagat then? Well, his great weakness is actually his health bar. Because you'll notice he's taking a lot more damage than usual compared to our other opponents whenever you hit him with a move. Sagat takes 1.5 damage on every attack. So that's the way you beat him. You hit him hard, you hit him fast, you close in, you don't allow him to get any range on you like I did here, like an idiot. And you might be wondering, what's with that big old scar on his chest? Well, Ryu gave it to him when he defeated him at the end of the original Street Fighter game. The eye patch actually was courtesy of another character in the Street Fighter series. Well, that character's father actually, Dan Hibiki, the quote-unquote joke character of the Street Fighter Alpha sub-series. His father fought Sagat, and Sagat killed his father, but not before Dan's father had taken away his eye, forcing him to wear an eye patch. And I'm playing as Ken just to show off different characters when they're controlled by a human and not the CPU. Our reward for beating the 3 Grandmasters is 1 final Grandmaster. The final boss of the game, this is M. Bison. A ruthless dictator complete with awesome entrance where he throws away his cape, and here we go with the final fight of the game, Ken vs Bison. Place your bets now. Although, I can already tell who you're placing bets on, and you'd be absolutely right, because this guy really lives up to his moniker as a final boss. He hits hard, he hits fast, he combos ridiculously easily, he can stun you in a matter of seconds, he can beat you in a matter of seconds as well. This guy, you do not want to take him lightly at all. He's also the only character in the game that you don't fight in his homeland. Curiously, we don't actually know M. Bison's homeland throughout the entirety of the Street Fighter franchise, despite him appearing in Street Fighters 2, 4, and 5, as well as a handful of crossover games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. We don't know his homeland. We know he's the leader of the crime syndicate known as Shadowloo, sometimes called Shadow Law in certain localizations. We also know he's horrible at speaking English, because Get Loose, I'm pretty sure, is not a viable sentence in English grammar, and Bison see me after class. The M stands for Master. Well, I don't know if that's official information, but people think the M stands for Master, as in Master Bison. And in Japan, he's called Vega. But because they had to rename M. Bison to Balrog, and then Vega had to be renamed from Balrog to Vega, they needed a new name for Vega, the Japanese Vega, and they called him M. Bison. I honestly don't think that's a bad name for the final boss of the game, honestly, if you forget the whole Mike Tyson, Mike Bison thing. And that's his signature move, the Psycho Crusher. He is filled with what's called Psycho Power, just go with this, and the Psycho Crusher is his main move. Covers a huge portion of the screen, does an awful lot of damage, and of course has 3 variations on it. Also extremely good in the air, so yeah, he's a very tough and fitting final challenge. He actually dies in the Super Turbo version of the game. If you fulfill certain conditions, Akuma shows up, kills him, stone dead with Shungo Kozatsu, and you fight Akuma as the final boss in his place. But he survives and gets a new body for Street Fighter 4 and onwards. And if you manage to perfect this guy, which is extremely difficult, you'll get 80,000 points, it's 50,000 for the other bosses, and it's 30,000 for the main opponents. But it doesn't matter, because we've beaten him. And Chun-Li can finally honour the memory of her father. The other endings of the game I'll just quickly go through here. Ryu does not show up to the victory ceremony because the fight is everything with him, as I've already said. Ken reunites with his sweetheart Eliza, who flies out there to see him win the tournament, and then they get married. Guile has the best ending of all of them potentially because he goes to kill Bison but is stopped by his wife and daughter, and then he returns home to his family. And you actually see this play out in real time. It's not like an ending picture. He just grabs him because he has no victory pose. Dustin returns home to his family in India on an elephant. Blanca gets recognised by a woman as her long-lost son Jimmy by the bracelet on his ankle, which is hilariously parodied in the game Killer Instinct with Idol's ending, where he recognises his mother from his club and then beats her to death with it. Honda goes back to Japan to teach the ways of sumo, and Zangief is congratulated by President Mikhail Gorbachev, who flies down on a helicopter, and then they Cossack dance together. No, seriously, that's Zangief's ending. Speaking of endings, we're going to end on a final fight between Chun-Li and Vega, which I didn't win, but this was too good to not show off, so I will end and I will leave off with this fight, let you enjoy it in its entirety, and all that remains to say is that I've been Rainiac. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, bye for now.